courtesy of responding to say that he couldn't send someone today. And by extension, that they were not interested in hearing our message. I mean, things happen, you know, people can't send somebody, but not even being able to return phone calls, I think that is quite disrespectful.
Yeah.
Two things I think I wanted to talk about very briefly. One is to say what we should be against and that which we should be for in the context of this whole issue of saving our social safety net. This is a complicated issue. It's complicated for Congress. I know our friends in Congress, both in the House and the Senate, have been struggling with this. We've had the fiscal cliff, the sequestration, the Budget Control Act. It's hard to keep all these things straight. Which fiscal year are we operating in? Which budget are we operating in? There's some helpful information up on the table in the front. Please help yourself to it, that explains, defines, tries to delineate some of which exists. But what is going on right now that we all should be very, very, I think, mindful of is negotiations around what have been called entitlement programs, that being Social Security, Medicare in particular. I think that's a misidentification. It's not entitlement, it's earned benefits. We have put much of our money into these programs and we expect to get something back.
Amen. Amen.
And should always expect that. And for that end, there should be no cuts to any of these. Right now there's something that Republicans and Democrats are sort of in pseudo-dance negotiation called a grand bargain.
Yeah.
We need to be very clear that people who are low income, moderate, seniors should not be bargaining chips.
Right.
We are human beings who have needs. We're not bargaining chips. This is a grand sellout, not a grand bargain. We have to make sure that we are very clear to our representatives, friends, foes, whomever, that we will not be negotiated and thrown off to the side for some modest increase in taxes to people who can afford to pay a lot more. So no to those kinds of cuts. And related to that, there is something called a chained CPI that would increase, but only very gradually, not enough to keep up with real increases in the cost of our economy. So part of our message as we communicate on protecting these sacred programs of Social Security and Medicare and so many others, but particularly with Social Security, no chained CPI. If you want increase, then keep the increase, real increase. And overall, no austerity measures. We can see what has happened with austerity in Europe. It's not been going so well, has it? In places like Spain and Greece, the way to increase the economy is invest the economy. There are funds available to do it. And we've heard some of those places we can find. Military spending, increasing taxes on the well-to-do, closing tax loopholes, and the like. Finally, I just wanted to mention things we need to say yes to. And there's a full sheet over on the table in the front that explains in more detail. Something called the Green New Deal. We know back in the 40s there was a New Deal that President Roosevelt and others got behind. We need to modernize that. And there is something now called a Green New Deal that's being promoted by people across the country that would call for sort of 4 pillars. One is an economic Bill of Rights, a green transition, real financial reform, and real democracy. And just under this economic Bill of Rights, a couple things worth lifting up. The right to employment through a full employment program that will create 25 million jobs by implementing a nationally funded but locally controlled direct employment initiative, replacing unemployment offices with local employment offices, offering public sector jobs which are stored in job banks in order to take up any slack in private sector employment. That's just one idea, along with things like Medicare for all, education for all, and other things. The right to accessible and affordable utilities like heat, electricity, phone, internet, and public transportation being democratically, publicly owned and controlled instead of privatized or corporatized. And the right to fair taxation that is much more fair and equitable than exists today. And other things. Won't get into because time does not permit. So, and the way we can come up with that and pay for it are things like through closing tax loopholes, and something that I know some of you, and even in Congress, there's been some suggestion of a financial transaction tax. Look, if the banksters want to play around and invest in all kind of bizarre derivatives and all of the like, okay, make sure 2 things. 1, that we don't bail them out, but 2, that we tax. every time they want to play financial games. We can come up with billions of dollars that can be used to reinvest. This is picking up steam around the world. It should pick up steam in our own Congress as well. And please encourage you to communicate to both our friends and maybe not quite as much of our friends, at least not yet, these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, are there any other sponsoring organizations to speak? Reverend Butcher?
One, I may have a few moments. Sure. Good morning again, everyone. I'm here to speak as a pastor of this congregation, and in some cases a community pastor, because I deal with more and shepherd with more than just the people who come through these doors. I'm here today to speak for the voiceless and for the have-nots and for the invisible people that frequently we drive past and we overlook. I'm here for the economic and social have-nots, for the people, the working poor who may not be here today, who are struggling with 2 or more jobs just to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. I first of all want to commend those who are here. Thank you, and I want to echo the sentiments of others. None of us, if we had our druthers, we'd rather be relaxing and enjoying the few nice days that we do have, but you are here. And to the same token, I want to say shame on you for those who are not here. Shame on you, Jim Renucci, for your arrogance in not even responding to the request to be here. And I would assert that Betty Sutton would have been here.
Right.
Yeah, she would have been here, or her representative. Shame on you, David Joyce, and shame on you, Rob Portman, because you all have failed the most basic of tests. Now, when I went to seminary, one thing that stood out that they told us about the ministry of presence. They say you may not be able to do much, especially when people are in crisis, but you just being there means so much. Just you being there, it tells the people that you're going through the same thing that they're going through, that even if you can't affect great change, you do understand. Your sympathy, your compassion shows by your mere presence. By your mere presence, it says so much. And so these 3 have failed because they did not show up. And it's their lack of showing up says they really don't care because they don't think we vote. But we have a surprise coming up because we do vote. Just let me say for the record that to those offices and those persons that you're representing today, for those who are present, that don't touch the earned benefits program except to expand it. Our people need this federal safety net. The veterans, the students who are just getting out of school, who are facing enormous debt, to our elderly, our education systems, we need it. We need it more than ever. And so when you can take the message back from just a pastor who is a community pastor, that the message is to keep what we have, to keep the safety net. Wherever there's an opportunity to expand it, because it does help in so many ways. And when you look at the have-nots, and there's so many of us who are falling in that category, they would tell you as well that it's sorely needed. So I'm speaking on behalf of many who could not be here today to say to keep the safety net intact. Thank you.
Okay, next we've got Ted Thompson, followed by Betty Zager and Carol Wagner.
Good morning, all. I just wanted to say a few general words. In general, what kind of country do we want to be? Okay, and that's the real crux of all of this. What kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to, because we're becoming a country of the haves and the have-nots. And unless you're in that top 1%, guess what? You're part of the have-nots. Okay? So, my personal, testimony though is, look, I will soon be 62 years old. Real soon. Okay? At 62, and in today's economy, even though I have a college degree, when I go to look for work, I can't even get a job at McDonald's because I'm overqualified. Okay? I have no health insurance. I'm a diabetic. Okay? And so I'm one of those people that falls through the cracks. Okay? And I'm sure there are many other people here in this room that have similar circumstances. Our education system is crumbling. We have roads, bridges, those kinds of things that are crumbling. And so we, the people, that's what this is about. You all are the people, and you vote. I happen to work in collaboration with some of the groups that are in this room, and we do form a network, okay, of those who, will get out the vote, who will register people, who will advocate for certain issues, and and I hope some of those groups and some of those people will speak out. Thank you.
Okay, Betty Zager. Next, and then Carol Wagner. Please be ready.
Made some notes. This is the way I always taught. My room was very organized, but my desk was always a mess. First of all, I wanted to thank those who are here, especially here. And I wanted to tell you that here we are in air-conditioned comfort. We're in the house of the Lord, and we're among politically active friends. So there's nowhere else I'd rather be, to tell you the truth. Okay, 10 years ago, I was talking with friends, and I said, I'm afraid there's going to be a revolution in this country. And it's not that I was so prophetic and so astute. It's just that I just felt the coming storm, and most of it is the social network and the deterioration of such. When people are desperate, they do desperate things. And it's like the father who braves a shooting just to get bread for his family. And we're multiplying that exponentially. We're multiplying that across this country. I am a teacher of 44 years in the Akron Public School System. Thank you very much. Most of it in the inner city, I might add. I love the underdog. I spent 27 years at Central Howard, and then I moved to East High School. The only reason I moved is because we fought for our building and lost. And East High School was so much like Central Howard. The community was strong, and I loved the feeling there. There was no pseudo-intellectualism. There was just hard work. And they had that 3-point club. 3.0 club was absolutely wonderful. Okay, getting back down to basics here. I read with interest, Mr. Johnson, your newsletter. What a wonderful president you are. They chose wisely. In the schools, I just was faced with frustration because this thing about going to college, sure, I went to college, I got my master's, that's wonderful, I love that. But pushing college, if I heard another politician, even President Obama, when he said, now every child will go to college, I thought it was going to explode. The vocations, the trades, that's where the money is. And if you can't even operate, do a car repair without having almost an engineering degree, your air conditioner, your furnace, your plumbing, those are staples. And we should be training kids to do that. Vocation is not a dirty word. When Central Howard was at the height of its power in the 80s, we had 14 different trades, and they were outstanding. Now they're kind of watered down, and they're spread all over the city. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying that they were housed in one magnificent building. So, with interest, Mr. Johnson, I am exasperated that our construction jobs are flowing out of this city. And you have to start small. Sure, it's nice to be big, but let's start small. And I guess what I want to know is how we can help. Right now, before the election starts, what can we do to help you push this incentive program to train our youths and to also bring the construction dollars, and there's a lot of construction going on in Akron. When you go up Market Street or Exchange Street, you can see those pillars rising for the dorms at the University of Akron. So I really want to know, and I'll probably talk to you if you'll have me after the meeting to find out personally what we can do to support you. Thank you, everyone. Makes a loud noise.
Okay, Carol Wagner, then Victor Daniel was next, followed by Eileen Matthias.
Hi, I'm Carol Wagner. I'm a retired polymer engineer. I was disabled on the job and lost my career. Live on Social Security in a crumbling house in North Hill because I can't afford better. And now they wanted to change CPI and they wanted to cut Social Security. I made a lot of money once upon a time, paid well into the system, and now they want to make cuts. If you look up the budget, and you look at our treasury, there's a pie chart. They say we owe $14–15 trillion. Well, really, if you look at it, we owe the majority to ourselves. They borrowed heavily from Social Security to the tune of $6–7 trillion. They owe us, the government. They stole from us, and it's time for them to give our money back. Social Security is not losing money. Social Security, the money is there. Same thing goes for Medicare. Medicare, we've had some fraud within there, but we have money to pay for those bills. If it wasn't for the pharmaceutical companies who say that they have to have a certain amount of money, or the hospitals who have to have a certain amount of money. The CPI chain thing's got to go, and we've got to be vocal about it. Citicorp wrote a piece of paper that they didn't want let loose. They said the sleeping giant, if they're woke, meaning us the people, and we started voting and getting out there in grassroots movements. That's what the 1% was afraid of. Our government is not broken, it's fixed. Because of corporations, lobbyists on K Street, and the people who are apathetic and not ready to make a move and get grassroots movements, and vote and do something to bring democracy back to America. America is first, democracy is now. Get on the move, get your neighborhood, get your kids, and bring democracy back to America.
Okay, Victor Daniel, followed by Eileen Matthias.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
The lady who spoke right before the last lady, she brought up a good point. There's a lot of construction going on in Akron. We've talked about this in the Coalition for a Safe Community. It's a shame one of the largest African-American churches in Akron had a large construction program going on. They built I believe it's called the New Seasons. We pass by that site every day. I live in West Akron. We didn't see any African Americans working on that construction site. A number of schools have been built in African American community in Akron. And we didn't see hardly any African Americans working on those construction sites. We even questioned them, and the contractor said, well, I can't find any qualified African Americans to hire.
Right.
One of the things that was going on in the 70s and the 80s, there were programs, I believe they got federal grants to train African Americans to do construction work, technical jobs. And and I know this for a fact, I went through a program called LEAP. And they gave me math training, geometry training, so I could pass the test to get into the electrical apprenticeship program at Republic Steel. Now, there's some jobs out there. There are technical jobs, there's construction jobs, but the youth, minority youth, they need training beyond high school. High school will only get you so far. And some of us, like I wasn't a good math student, but it wasn't because I was stupid. It was I didn't understand how important math was, but a little extra training, I was able to get into that program. The Urban League gave Safety Forces program training. I was able to get on the Akron Police Department where I served for 19 years because of the training I got from the Urban League. Safety nets are good. Jobs are better. We need to bring back thoroughly funded training.
All right. Okay, Eileen Matthias, followed by Gerald Gould.
I don't like him. I don't even, after listening to everybody, I know what I want to say, but after listening to everybody, the only thing I can do is tell my story now, and I'm 53 years old. I played by the rules. I went to college. I got a degree. My senior year in college, I was actually on the dean's list, and supposedly that means a lot. I'm 53 years old now. For the first time last year, I had an injury that actually disabled me to the point where I hurt my knee and I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. I had good jobs, but then in 2000, whoever was elected at that point in time, things started to go downhill. And I have not been able to find a good job in my field. I've taken temp jobs. I have no problem with taking temp jobs. In fact, I've taken so many that I'm actually overqualified in a lot of ways because I have a lot of different training behind me. I've invested in my community with my time. I'm a volunteer at several organizations that have also given me experience in different things, from anything from helping with fundraising to horticulture to scooping poop. I'm part of this community. I like being part of this community. I don't want to move out of Ohio, but I can't find a job. And if they're going to get rid of these federal safety nets, then we need jobs. Right now I'm on food stamps. I get $200 a month on food stamps, but that's it. I have no way of getting anything. For 2 months now, I have not had full rent. My landlord is a fireman who renovated a house so he could have extra income. Hopefully the house will be paid off by the time he retires, so that can be his income. But he has 2 children, one going to college. So this is a fireman